so we're going to go ahead and get started. Our first speaker, his name is Sean Patton. He's with Stronger Leaders, Stronger Profits, and they're going to present leadership, your greatest competitive advantage in veteran recruitment and achieving greatness in the marketplace. So Sean earned the respect of his men and chain of command as a U.S. Army Airborne Ranger and Special Forces Green Beret Commander while operating in hostile and politically sensitive environments. In the private sector, he applies these lessons in growing his own companies and helping others through strong leaders and stronger profits. Thank you very much. Sean?
All right. Good morning. Can you hear me? I gotta make sure. Having a mic on and seeing a mic here scares me. I feel like I'm gonna terrorize you guys with squeals. So, thank you for having me this morning. It's my honor to be here. As we mentioned sort of in the introduction, my background straight out of high school was the military. So I went to basic at the United States Military Academy at West Point, 3 weeks out of high school, and then 14 years later, after time in infantry and commanding Green Beret teams and in Iraq, Afghanistan, a bunch of places in between, got out to start my own companies. And what I quickly realized was the one thing that we almost take for granted, especially in elite units and special operations, is the quality of leadership from the top to the bottom. And I found that that's what sort of the key missing component of almost every organization and company that I worked with. And I also realized that it was absolutely the greatest competitive advantage. And so when I got asked today to actually talk about how do we find and recruit veterans, which is a noble cause, and I absolutely encourage you to do that, I realized these things are intertwined. And so what I want to do today is talk through some principles of leadership and culture and what veterans are looking for. And then we'll get down to some tactical things as well, of how to actually, where to find them and how to keep them in your company. So I look forward to talking with you today. So here's our agenda, and we'll get right to it. So first things first, all right, mission drives culture. So what I mean by that is, if you look at any organization and you look at what's its purpose, what's it's designed for, its culture should be allocated, should be directed toward that missions. So I'll use the kind of example in the military because I find myself educating people on different parts of the military, especially with special operations. People always want to hear about, SEALs and Green Berets and Rangers and stuff. Okay, so like the culture inside, let's say, Army Rangers and Navy SEALs is, well, their mission set is direct action. So they're kicking down doors, they're blowing stuff up, they're hammering stuff down. Their average age on a SEAL team is like 25, or a Ranger's like 25, right? Green Berets, we operate a little differently. We operate in smaller, like 12-man teams, and we do more intelligence and sort of clandestine work overseas. And so our average age is 31. And everyone here has a company or works in a company, you know the big difference between your 24-year-old employees and your 31-year-old employees, right? So the culture of that and the composition is driven by the mission set. So I do find that I have to educate some differences between the two, and these are some lessons that I found when I came out of the military. So, in the military, we really take for granted the fact that even when that brand new private shows up, who's responsible for nothing but putting on the right set of clothes, making sure he doesn't lose his rifle and showing up on time, had almost 2 years of training just to do that. Just to show up and be like, shut up, sit there, hold your rifle. Okay? And in the civilian sector, we don't have that, right? Your person shows up and you don't know, oh yeah, they've gone through a basic training, they've gone through advanced this, they've gone to airborne school, they've got 18 months of training to do this entry-level job. That's just not a thing. So we have to make sure we have the proper expectations for that person. Also in the military, from our culture, every mission, or every unit all the way down from the biggest division down to the smallest squad of 8 people has a clearly defined purpose and mission. And we find, especially in the civilian workforce, especially when we get out of sort of that leadership bubble sometimes at the top, that the people at the bottom don't really understand what the mission is, or they don't understand the big picture. They understand that my job is to move this thing to here, listening to hear, but they don't understand how that impacts everything else around it. And it becomes very limiting for them, it becomes very limiting in their development, and it can hurt the morale of the company. Okay? The other thing in the military is leadership training is inherent in the organizational system. And I am a huge proponent with everyone I work with that leadership training cannot be an extra task. You can't have people doing their jobs and say, oh, hey, we're gonna do this leadership seminar, or oh, hey, we're gonna hire you for this job, and then we're gonna send you away to some leadership training. You have to structure your company and every position so that part of their daily routine is preparing them to lead the next level. For a couple reasons. One, you owe it to them to train them for the job you expect them to do next, not throw them into a position and expect them to catch up. And two, it gives you a chance to actually evaluate, is this person any good at this next job, right? All too often it's like, we've got 20 engineers, who's gonna be in charge? Tom's the best engineer, he's in charge. Tom's a horrible leader, he doesn't wanna be in charge. He just wants to be an engineer. The best salesperson may not be the best person for the head of the Department of Sales. They may just be the best salesperson. And maybe you're a mediocre salesperson that actually can be the best leader of other salespeople. But you won't know that unless you have a system built into your company to evaluate them not for sales, but for leadership. And if you train them prior. And you know, in the military, and I'm gonna hit this over and over again, there's an emphasis on a team-based mission-first culture, right? It's soldiers always mission first. And in the civilian side, we find that we're like, here's your job, and it's all about you, and we see this, right, where one thing you'll never see in the military, I'll say this, right, is there's a job to do, everyone's doing their job, and then one person finishes, and they sit down and watch everybody else work. That's not a thing, right? You're not done till everyone's done. But we see this all the time, right? We see like someone drive the forklift up, set it down there, and watch everybody else move stuff. Now, sometimes I know there's regulations and people have certain jobs and responsibilities, but there's this emphasis of like, I did my part, I guess I'm done. And you're never gonna optimize your system, and I'll tell you that veterans will walk into that and not feel at home, and they don't understand that culture. So I'll talk about a little difference, you know, all the MBA programs and leadership stuff and books written on the difference between management and leadership. And I think it comes down to one simple phrase. We manage systems and we lead people. So managers are about systems optimization. It's about workflows. You can manage a hydraulic pump system or a plumbing system, or you can manage an electrical grid. And you can get as much efficiency out of that system as possible. The same way you could put together a new CRM workflow, and all of a sudden you increase the efficiency of what's going on, but you'll never increase the actual potential of the organization. You can't lead a hydraulic system. You can manage people, you can manage things, but you can only lead people. Leadership is a uniquely human concept. So leadership, in my mind, has sort of, quality leadership has 5 components that I look for at all times. First, a selfless mindset. Leadership is selfless. Leadership is about the team. When something good happens, what do? We recognize and give the credit to the team. When something bad happens, it's our fault and our responsibility. And we'll deal with it behind closed doors. You have to set the example. I have never in my life, I've been through some of the most intense leadership training experiences you can imagine for the last over 20 years. I've never met a successful leader that didn't lead by example. You can be a delegator, you can be a doer, you can be kind of draconian, you can be laissez-faire, you can be whatever you want. There's different ways to be an effective leader, there's different tactics. But if you don't set the example, and you're like, all right, guys, do this, do that, all right, cool. And then you go back and sit and watch everybody do that, you're not going to gain the trust and respect of your organization. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go out and do everyone's job. I'm not saying the CEO has to be, moving equipment from one side to the other. But every once in a while, you need to go out and show them you're willing to sweat. And guess what? Just because you did it 20 years ago and you did your time, they weren't there. They don't see that. They don't care. They have to see it. Just every once in a while, show them. Get in there and show them, oh, boom, I can do this. Or not even that you don't have to be the best, you have to be willing to suffer, right? If something gets messed up and timing goes off and you're late and you have to work late, be there. Don't be the leader that's like, oh, well, sorry, guys, yeah, the shipment got in late, so we're going to have to do some overtime today, but got to go to my kid's soccer game. See ya. You just lost them. You lost everyone, and you definitely lost your veterans. You just lost all respect. Now, sort of the PhD next level, the ninja level of this, is to be very strategic and do the hard things and make sure everyone sees you do it without them knowing that you're making sure they see you do it. So I'll tell you what I mean, right? So my first company that when I got in the military was a gym franchise. And I bought it, and I was teaching classes, I was doing sales, I was doing everything, right? Brand new entrepreneur. And so after all my classes, even though I didn't teach them any, I made sure that I did the checklist, right? I mopped underneath, right? But here's what I did. I waited until everyone was done with their stuff, and then I started mopping so they could all see that I was mopping. But they didn't know I did that. Same thing. Every once in a while, I'd go in and I'd scrub the toilets and scrub the urinal, but I wouldn't do them because no one was there. You know? So I would do it and make sure that they knew that they saw me scrubbing that urinal, because they only had to do it once, and I got credit. Right? So that's sort of the next level. You have to set the example and and make sure they understand that you're willing to suffer for them, but that doesn't mean that you need to go down and do the grunt work at all times. Okay? Be selective about how you do that. And then set the example also comes with, obviously, integrity. Right? If you tell them if you say one thing and do another, you're already lost. Leadership can be lonely. You have to have proper relationship dynamics. We're all pretty senior leaders in here, it seems like, for the most part, but some of us still struggle with this. And I'll tell you that for your new, especially your natural leaders, the people are like, oh, this girl's got it. She's the next hotness. She's going to rise to the ranks. For that natural, charismatic person that has always been used to being in charge and have everyone like them, for them to set the proper boundaries with their senior subordinates is hard. Because they're so used to people liking them. They're so used to peer leadership, which is totally different than a senior-subordinate relationship. So being able to have a loving, trusting relationship with your subordinates, but also have a line, is a tough one to walk. And we need to be able to do that and train that. Loving. You have to love your organization. You have to love your people in a purely platonic way, but you need to do it. You have to care about them. And make sure that you're always focused on the mission. Everyone's mission focused, but we're taking care of our people at all times. Okay? At the end of the day, effective leadership is the ability to maximize the potential of any single person and organization to accomplish your end state. And you have to do all of these things to be able to do that. So, leadership is the most dynamic force in the organization because individual energy and time is limited. Each one of us can only do so many things. We only have so many calories to burn. We only have 24 hours in a day. We only have so many years to give. And so if we want to maximize our impact as a human being, if we want to maximize our impact as a business owner, as a leader within a company, we have to master leadership. Friction points are where you need to put yourself. Usually when two organizations that don't necessarily, or two groups that don't work together that often, come together to have to do something, that's where you need to be. That's the day you come out of the office and go to the job site. Right? When these two groups come together, or an outside entity interacts with your company or your organization, that's where you go. If you know these two managers or these two foremen, or whoever they are, don't really get along that well, you need to be there when they meet. So you need to identify, if it's not a routine task, you set up your company to automate and delegate as much as possible, but if it's not going to do that and it's going to require some manual effort, that's where you make time to be. And I've said it once, I'll say it again. Trust and respect has to go down in an organization. You can't be like, well, these young kids don't just respect me. That's not the way it works. You've got to send it to them first. You've got to show that you trust them inherently out from the beginning, and you respect them from the beginning. You respect their time, you respect their effort, you respect them as people. You have to do that immediately, and then the more you do that over time and show consistency, it'll flow back up to you. But that's the only way it works. It can't go the other way. And this is where we start making a slight transition here, or at least an inkling of transition to the veteran-specific stuff, right? Poor leadership is the #1 contributor to employee turnover, okay? It's not money. Money is a satisfier. It's not a driver. Right, there's a bunch of articles going on right now. They're calling it the Great Resignation. Everyone's leaving their work. They don't want to work anymore. They just don't want to work for bad leaders. The companies that are investing in their leadership and management and have a culture that people want to come to and that love their people and take care of them, not just as a widget that does a thing, but as a human being that has goals and missions and drives in life, those companies are staying around. So it's not the Great Resignation across the board. It is a changeover of the guard that in order to be competitive in today's marketplace, you better learn about people, not just things. You better start taking care of your people. You better start loving your people. You better start treating them as a human being, not just as a way to accomplish a task. And if you do that, the results will overflow, because that's the expectation today. So when you put management and leadership together, I put it in a graph because I'm not that smart of a guy, and sometimes I just need to look at a picture, right? So if you start on the left, you see that's an organization with good management and bad leadership. So what you see there is that the total line, right, the top of the line is total unused potential. And over time, through new workflows, through new KPIs, through all the different management tasks you can do, new counseling, all these stuff you can do, right, you will grow within the potential of your company. You're going to increase capability, but it's going to cap off. If it's just management, then whenever they came in with, that's what you got, right? Now, the second example isn't that common, but it's possible. Bad manager, good leader, right? The cheerleader, oh, we could do this, come on, guy, blah, blah, right? Get everybody going, I'm fired up. And you'll increase their potential, their belief in themselves, but their actual capacity to perform is actually worse. So if you had to choose between a good manager, bad leader, or bad manager, good leader, you'd actually choose the worst leader initially if you want immediate outcomes, right? But what we're looking for is the sweet spot. When you put those two things together, they create a positive feedback loop or a flywheel. So I actually wrote an article on this that got published, and I think it probably got published because I said Einstein was wrong, and people like headlines. So because Einstein said that compounding interest was the most powerful force in the universe. I say he was partly right. A positive feedback loop where the outcomes of the system become inputs and it grows upon itself is the most powerful concept in the universe. But instead of applying that to just interest on money, we apply that principle to human potential. How much more impactful is that? Like how do you measure the potential of a great organization of people with great leadership from top to bottom, driven for a common cause? Every major influential change in the history of mankind has happened that way, good and bad. But it takes leadership, and it creating the good management, creating additional capacity, and then looking at, hey, look what we just did, guys, look at that. Imagine what we could do if we do these things. Good leadership, let's fill that up. Look, you never thought we'd be able to do that? Now we just did it. Guess what? We're going to do it again. Good leadership, boom, and it flows, it flows, it flows. And that's what we're trying to create with proper management and leadership. So one of the reasons that people don't necessarily invest in leadership development or focus on it is because we're always looking sort of short-term, quarter to quarter. I'm like, all right, well, where on the P&L does quality leadership show up? Right? What's my KPI? What's my ROI? So here are 4 key things that I'll tell you that if you start seeing this, you know you're winning as a servant leader. So 1, your people are more worried about disappointing you than on the negative personal consequences of failing. When someone fails at a task, one of your subordinates, and they come up and they talk to you, you can immediately tell, are they sad about the potential consequences of them not doing this task well? Or are they sad that they let you down? There's a big difference there. And if you notice that they're like, oh, Sally, I'm so sorry. I know you needed this done by this date. I couldn't do it. I promise I'll get it done. Or are they like, team didn't get it done. I know I'm in trouble. Right? Those are two different things. They want to share their successes with you, right? They tag you in the post about their kid winning first place at a tournament. They come to tell you, I know where I said I've been training for that 5K, I did it, I finished. They're not just talking about work. Now they're starting to see you as a leader of them as a human being, not as a manager of their tasks. They start mimicking your behavior, habits, and patterns. So I'll use a quick story. My wife, who is now a manager, but she worked for Postmates, which was just got bought by Uber, but it's a food delivery service. So it's basically like a tech call center, sales center. So of course, you know how sales call centers are, right? It's like, overflowing with energy drinks and kegerators filled with cold brews and pizza and donuts and all that stuff all the time. Well, she would just bring her salad or her healthy lunch in and then work out at the gym in the same building and then eat her lunch and go back to work. And at first, everyone made fun of her. They're like, come on, it's margaritas. Let's go get them or whatever. They'd say, why aren't you having pizza with us? Why aren't you hanging out? She's like, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to eat my salad. But I'll tell you what, 2 or 3 months in, people start going up like, hey, when are you going to the gym? Do you mind if I come with you? They started flipping. They started mimicking. And you know what happened is when she got promoted to manager, she was already an informal leader in the company. She already had everyone's respect because they respected her self-discipline. They respected her integrity. And they started mimicking everything she started doing. And when they start asking your opinion for things outside of work, right? All of a sudden they care about what you think about what's going on in Afghanistan. All of a sudden they ask what you think about some news story or what's going on in the local community or what's your opinion on this or what's your opinion on that. As soon as they start asking you about stuff outside of the organization and they want to know what you think about it, they respect you as a person, as a leader, not just as a manager. Communication is critical. Communication is, if it's not the root cause of every failure in your business, it's a contributing factor in every failure in business. So what I came up with from my time in the military was using some different military doctrines and practices and stuff. I started realizing, I need to tighten up. I used to call it the 5 components of an order, but people on the civilian side don't like calling stuff an order. So it's a communication method now, okay? So what's the right amount of information I need to give someone that's not too much, but is not too little, to make sure that if I give this to them, it gets done? And this is what I came up with. So first, task, pretty simple. What do you want done? Purpose, the why behind it needs to get done. What effect are you trying to achieve by this person doing this thing? This is where we start explaining maybe, I want you to move this stuff from here because tomorrow at 5 a.m., this other person's coming in and they're going to do this other thing. But if this person doesn't know that, I'd be like, it's good enough, 90%, I'll get the rest in the morning when I come in at 6. And then the other truck shows up at 5. Intent. So intent is sort of an expanded purpose, and it can be short. If it's a simple task, if you're asking someone to do something routine, that can be almost non-existent. But if it's a complex task, a complex system, you put everything in there. So this is where we get into the how. I need you to do this thing this certain way. What I will tell you is don't overuse that. That is micromanagement. If there's a certain way it has to get done, and they don't know how to do it, by all means say that. But it becomes very limiting if you always tell people how to do everything. Because it doesn't allow them to experiment. It doesn't allow them to use all their innovation and to come up with new ideas and thought processes, right? Because the person that's doing this job 8 to 10 hours a day, and you look and you see it, 1 hour a week, they're going to figure a better way to do it if you let them. So empower them by giving them as little how as possible. End state. When this task is done, when you come to me and be like, all right, sir, we're complete, we're going home. Cool, what's that look like? What different components are important and what does success look like to you? Timeline. This is the one, and it may be better in your industry because I know it's very project managed and time driven, but in almost every company, this is the one people forget. Because if you go over and you go, hey, Billy, can you get me that report when you get a chance? Thanks. And you walk away, and the next morning it's not on your desk, that's not Billy's fault. He hasn't had a chance. you need to be very specific with date and time. Hey, Bill, I need that report on my desk by 8 a.m. tomorrow. Cool. Now, if it's not there at 8 a.m., now we can do something about it. Otherwise, it's not Billy's fault. And then finally, back brief. This one can get tricky, especially when I train leaders to do this with their significant others, which it works for your personal life as well. But it's just saying, okay, what did I just tell you to do? You told me to do this, and they give you all 5 components. And here's what will happen. Unless they wrote it down, or you sent it written, if you verbally gave someone a task to do, it's messed up. They're going to be missing something, or they're going to add something in, right? We all played the telephone game when we were kids. By the time it got around, was the story ever the same? It wasn't the same, right? So the same thing's going to happen, okay? What you have in your head, and when it comes from your head out through your mouth, and you make sounds, and someone hears it and goes in here, and it goes in their brain, and what they think that means is different. So confirm it. All right, tell me what I told you to do. Now, if you're going to try to use this with your kids or your spouse, which it does work, and it's a great communication tool, I tell you what, the first time I asked my wife, all right, what did I just tell you to do? Didn't go so well. So I don't recommend you do that. But here's what you do, right? Or with other peers or people in a different company, right? You say, all right, look, I know that was a lot. I probably missed something. What did I tell you? Can you just tell me back what I just told you so I make sure I didn't miss something? It's that easy. Oh, well, you told me to do this. You know what? I missed, blah, blah, blah. Or actually do this part and get clarity before you move on. The power in the 5 Bravo comes when it doesn't happen the way you've wanted to. It comes when failure occurs. Because if you use the 5 Bravo, or let me take a step back. Failure occurs. First thing you do as a leader is sit back and go, did I give him the whole 5 Bravo? Boom, 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 boom. Dang it, I didn't. Well, that's on me now. It's a leadership lesson for you as a leader to get better. It's not on them anymore. You can't hold them accountable for that. It's your fault. Own it, redo it, do better next time. But if you think back and be like, yep, well, got them all. All right, Ed, something happened here. Now we can make a decision, and here's the great part. The decision is binary. It's only one of 2 things. Ed needs more training to complete the task you want him to do, or Ed's not capable of doing the task you want him to do, and he needs to move on to something else, whether it's out of the company or a different position. But if you don't do this, you can't even make that assessment. You don't even know what you got yet. All you know is you need to get better at communication as a leader. So it's a powerful tool. And it's the number one thing that will immediately, you can implement this in your company as an SOP next week, and you will see immediate impact. As a leader, okay, there's 2 tasks that you can never delegate. Creating the proper culture and making decisions. That's what you get paid to do. Everything else, sales, marketing, social media, whatever else you want to come up with, right? Somebody else can do that and take responsibility for that. But you as the leader are the only one that can create culture. I take that back. Other people can create it, but if you're not in control of it, who knows what it'll be, right? So as a leader, you have to create the proper culture, and you have to make decisions. So let's talk about how we do that. So what I have listed up here are actually the 5 components of emotional intelligence. And when you look through this, the interesting part about emotional intelligence is that 3 of the 5 skill sets or intelligences are about you. It's about self-leadership, self-awareness, right? There's 2 types of self-awareness, external and internal. What do you think about yourself? Is what you think about yourself accurate? Is that true? And then external, what do you think people think about you? Everybody thinks I'm awesome. No, they don't. Right? Everybody thinks I'm funny. No, they don't. Right? It's a lack of self-awareness. Or maybe you are funny, and they do think it. Who knows? But self-awareness is critical, and these are things we have to develop as a leader because emotional intelligence is what drives the ability to create culture. Self-regulation, right? Especially in your industry. Oh my gosh. Like I said, it's boom, it's driven, timeline, project manager, boom, 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 boom. You got to show people that you can do the same thing. If your company, punctuality and doing what you say and showing up on time with the right things at the right time is critical to the success of your company, and you show up 10 minutes late all the time, what do you expect from everybody else? You're creating a culture that is not aligned, your culture is not aligned with what your successful mission looks like. what a successful culture in your company looks like. Motivation, right? Motivation can wane, and I talk a lot about motivation when I work with other clients, so that could be a whole nother hour talk, right? Because at the end of the day, motivation is really purpose and self-discipline. That's what motivation is. Sometimes you just don't feel like, you don't feel good. You don't feel motivation can wane, it can go up and down. But if you have a clearly defined purpose for yourself, for your life, what impact do you want to have? How are you going to make your life matter? And then you have self-discipline to execute on that, you have unlimited fuel, unlimited energy. Because you're not driven by how do I feel today and how much sleep did I get, but you're driven by I only have another 30 years to impact the world around me. And you think about that every single day, right? Time is our most limited resource. You can have $1 billion you can't buy back yesterday. So I hope you spend it well. And I hope you spend as much time focused on how you spend your time than you do how do you spend your money. Because money will come and go, but your time's finite. So motivation comes from purpose and self-discipline. Now we finally get to actually interacting with other people, right? You have to get yourself straight first, master self-leadership first. Then you can get to empathy, the ability to understand someone else's perspective. The world is lacking empathy right now. Everyone's in a tribe. It's always us versus them. We're always labeling people, not thinking, man, we've got 300 million different opinions in this country. Like, maybe I should form my own. Maybe I should think about them as a person, not as what color they fly or what flag they fly or what football team they root for, right? We're all just people. If there's anything I learned going to some of the worst places to live in the world, it's how we're all the same. We all want the same thing. We all want safety. We want our kids to be happy and safe. We want to have good relationships, fulfilling relationships. We want to have purpose with our life. And in this country, we've immediately are given so much of that we take it for granted. And we can't. We have to learn to empathize with other people. Everyone else's reality is different than yours. I don't see why they can't just blah, 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 blah. Because their life's different than you, bro. Come on. Right? It's different. They grew up in a different place than you. They had a different upbringing. They've got different struggles. It's different growing up, even in this country, working as a man versus a woman. That's a completely different experience. I can't imagine. It sounds terrifying to be a woman and walking around the city by myself. I don't worry about it. But that's something they have to deal with, so their mentality is going to be different than yours. Social skills, we have to develop those, and that will come with communication. It will come with mastering yourself. Social skills, in my opinion, is really the outcome. It's the product of mastering the first four. You can't expect to interact with people and have them look up to you, and have that charisma and understanding if you don't even understand yourself, if you don't understand your own motivations, if you don't understand your own strengths and weaknesses. You got to start with yourself first before you can really, how you expect to understand where else somebody else is coming from and have empathy. And then the next step is, how do I influence the way they feel? I don't know, I can't influence the way I feel. So we have to work on these things, okay? And here's the thing about culture too. Before I put up a picture, I'll put up a picture of my puppy here. So that's Java Bean. She's almost 13 now. She obviously, this is when I first got her. She was 8 weeks old. She's still my girl. She's still killing it. I got her right when I got back from Iraq after 14 months in Southwest Baghdad, and I think she probably saved my life. But creating culture is like with kids, and so I don't have kids, I gotta talk about puppies, right? So here's the thing about puppies and dogs, okay? I put in so much time. I knew what I was doing. I never had a dog before. So if you guys remember like the dog whisperer, Caesar Milan back in the day, you guys remember dog? Caesar? I love Caesar. So I didn't know what I was doing, so I bought the 6 DVD set of Bringing a Puppy Home Perfectly, right? And I watched all 6 DVDs, and I did everything. Like, she couldn't even walk on a leash, and I'd still like walk in first and then bring her in behind me. I made her, ask to jump on the couch and the bed and all that stuff. Just so much work. You have a puppy, you hear them crying in the other room, but they got to stay in their crate. All that stuff. It's painful. It sucks, right? You go through all that, but when it's done, she's like the best dog ever. I haven't enforced her asking to get on the couch in like 7 years, and she still won't get on the couch unless you invite her up. Because you put in the hard work first, and that's how culture is for your company. If you put the work in to create the proper culture in your company now, the hard, difficult, grinding work, once it's going and it starts infiltrating down and everyone gets on board, it's smooth sailing. And now you can tackle excellence. Otherwise, it's always going to be a weight dragging you back. And you have to come back and fix it and back and fix it. So invest now and reap the rewards later as a leader by investing and focusing on culture within your company. Making a decision. We can't do that. We can't pass off responsibility for major decision making. And the worst thing you can do as a leader is be indecisive. That doesn't mean we don't manage risk and set timelines and expectations. I'm not saying that. But I learned this really quick, right? Even as an officer in Special Forces, Green Beret, I showed up, just got my Green Beret, 2 years of training, got 14 months in Iraq, I commanded a sniper platoon, I commanded a rifle platoon, I've done all these things. I show up to my team in the team room first day as the commander in charge of the whole team, 28 years old, youngest guy on the team. But I was the commander. And so there's a lot of lessons there we could go into, but you get poked a little bit about being the young captain who doesn't know what's going on, and booted, oh, sir, you lost again, all that stuff, right? But I'll tell you the first thing that happens when you start getting shot at, everyone gets on the radio, sir, what do we do? You're still in charge. Doesn't mean you have to be a dictator all the time and march around, order people around, but I'll tell you that when poop hits the fan, it's on you. And you have to be ready for that, and how do you make a decision? So sometimes you have to make quick decisions, obviously, and we want to set up SOPs and understand our company and our metrics so we can make those quick decisions, and we have to. But when we have longer time to make decisions, I would encourage you to utilize a planning process that involves your circle, your people around you, for a lot of reasons. So what I have here is basically a modification of the way a Green Beret team plans a mission. And we do this, we go away into the isolation facility for 4 days, no phones, no anything. We sleep there, we eat there, we plan for 4 days straight. And say a mission comes down somewhere across the world, they'll put 3 teams in isolation, they all plan for 4 days, and whatever team has the best plan is the one that gets it, everybody else goes home. Here's an NDA, don't talk about what we just talked about. Only one of the 3 teams gets to go. And so we got really good at this. It's what really differentiates us from everybody else in special operations is our planning. So I had to get really good at this. And so here's a modification of that. And I'll do a brief run through because obviously this could be a whole thing in itself. But if I had to talk through these, right, quickly, first, understand the problem, right? I poked fun at Einstein, but somebody asked him if he had an hour to solve a problem that the fate of the world depended on, what would he do? He said, I'd spend 55 minutes defining the problem and 5 minutes solving it. Don't rush to failure. Stop and think and define, what are we really trying to accomplish here? What is our end state? What variables and resources do we have to bring to this problem? What constraints do we have? It might be regulatory. It might be financial. It might be manpower. Who knows? But what's constraining us? And then once we know that with the first 3 steps, now we can decide what's our best planning process. But I would encourage you as much as possible, don't desk plan. When these problems come in, don't just sit in your office and think about it yourself and then be like, all right, here's what we're doing. Bring everybody in and lead them through the process. Get buy-in. It'll get buy-in from your team. They'll understand the problem set and the mission and the solution better, so they'll execute better. And as you go through this and sharpshoot each other's ideas and problems and missions, you'll already identify the 20 most likely contingencies that are going to happen. The 20 things that could happen, because everybody's going to poke holes in each other's plan, and you're going to come up with a solution for that. And so you're going to come out of there with a more robust plan that, when executed, when the inevitable happens, right? As we used to say in the military, the enemy gets a vote. When something happens, you're like, oh yeah, we talked about that. Sally brought up the fact that was going to happen. Cool, we already got a plan. Boom, done. Whole train doesn't have to stop. So you have to determine what's the best problem-solving strategy. I encourage you to bring people in. I also encourage you to develop multiple possible courses of action. Let's just brainstorm. What do you got? Boom, boom, boom. Let's list out as many as you got. Cool. Now let's pick like 2 to 4 of the best ones, okay? And what we'll do then is set different teams. Okay, you three, that table takes course of action 1, this table takes course of action 2, that table takes course of action 3, all right? You got 30 minutes to come back and brief everybody on your plan. They go back, they solve it back. Here's what I'm doing as a leader, walking around. You guys got any questions? You guys need anything? Huh? Okay, cool. Awesome, because I did the pre-work, right? And then we get up here, everybody briefs, and then we evaluate and poke holes in the plan. Say, oh, we like that about this, we don't like that, what about that? Oh, you're right, we didn't think about this other thing. And then you evaluate the course of action individually, then you compare them. And then finally, here's what it comes down to. The whole time, all you did was facilitate. Great leaders don't have the best answers, they have the best questions. So you get to ask those questions, and they come together, and then you get all the data, your whole team just put this whole thing together, but then, back to you. It's your time to make a decision. And here's what will happen is you think that, well, I picked table 1 and table 2 and 3 are gonna be upset. Now they're not. Because they at least know they're heard. They at least know that you care about their opinion. And so they're gonna have more buy-in, even though it's table 1's plan. So now everyone's bought in. The most important 20 people already fully understand the problem, and they're ready to go execute. Instead of, all right, guys, we have this problem. Let me tell you about it. Let me tell you my solution. And then I'll tell you what you're all going to do to help do this, to solve this problem. You see the difference between the two? Goes kind of back to culture. Do the hard work up front as a leader, and the big payoff is at the end. And then communicate your decision effectively, right? However that is. We have to, I always tell people that if you really want to maximize your impact, you really want to be greatly successful in life, you have to get good at 3 things: leadership, sales, and public speaking. Because you'd be the smartest person in the world, but if I can't explain it to you, it all just lives in my head. Right? And if I don't have sales and I can't convince you and persuade you that my idea is correct, good luck. You're going to be sitting back here with a bunch of doodles with great ideas. Okay? And if you don't have great leadership, you can't execute with a team. So let's get into your veteran recruitment battle plan. Divided this up into sort of 3 steps. We're going to take top down. So the top level is going to be strategic, right? The top level is your organization. What can you do? Create a leadership-rich organization. Make sure you have a clearly defined and communicated mission, values, unique value proposition. Everyone who walks in your company, and part of their orientation, they should understand what your company's mission is, what its values are, and they should be able to recite it in their head. So don't make it 20 pages long, right? If you're, you know what I'm talking about. People have this, the handbook, and it's 40 pages, and you're like, what the hell? What are the values of the company? I don't know, I think it's on page 27, okay? Then you'd be like, oh, we do this, 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 this. What makes you different than everybody else? Oh, we do this, this, this. Because here's the thing, you know who's gonna recruit your veterans? It's probably not gonna be you. It's gonna be the people in your company. They're like, dude, you should come work here, it's awesome. It's great culture, great leaders, great benefits. Let me tell you about it. Here's what we do, here's what's different about it. Oh, I'll come work for them. As opposed to them running into them and, their buddies at the bar, they're talking on Facebook, I'm thinking about getting out. What does your company do? Like, I don't know, I put this thing, I move it here, and do it over and over again, and I go home at 5. I don't think I want to work there. Clearly defined career progression opportunities. Here's what I'll tell you about almost every veteran that you're going to hire. They're ambitious. They want to know, they're used to having everything they've done in their life is task, condition, standards. Here's what you do, here's the standard to do it, here's the conditions you're going to do it in. When you're done, let me know. Cool, Roger, got it, boom. That's what they're looking for. But if they walk into ambiguity, how do I get promoted? I think if once you're here like 3 or 4 years, they just move you up. Oof. You're going to lose every veteran in your company. And by the way, you're going to lose every one of your potential good employees, even if they aren't veterans. But especially with veterans, tell them, you're here, how do I get here? Here's how you get here. Show me this, bang, 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 and then watch them go do it. You can institute a mentorship and coaching program for veterans coming into your company. That's huge. Get veterans in the middle management levels, right, or the supervisor levels to talk to your new recruits and explain to them, here's how the company works. Here's how you can be successful. Here's the problems that you're going to face in transition. Because what I'll tell you with transitioning as a veteran is that getting out of the military happens like this. You might start doing some stuff, but you're not out of the military. You're still showing up for formation. You're still wearing a uniform. You're in the military until 1 second they're like, here's your ID card. And you walk out of this gate as an officer, this gate that I've drove into for 10 years and gotten saluted for it, I'm not allowed back in. Bang. It takes a long time to process that. It takes years for veterans to process and also discover who they are. So don't expect your veterans to come in and have it all figured out. They're still, it's like a new baby. It's a whole new life. It's like any major life transition, right? You go through a divorce, you're like, oh my God, I've been married for 20 years. Who am I now? What do I even do with my time? I used to make a dinner for this person every day. Or you retire, you change jobs, right? That's what just happened to them. It's going to take them a while to figure it out, and they need someone who's gone through it to tell them it's going to be okay and that it's going to take time. Okay? There's a ton, I don't even want to go out there, just Google it. There's a ton of different organizations and different ways that you can sort of verify yourself as a veteran-friendly employer. You can even make your own. Just make sure you can back it up. Have a separate landing page on your website for veteran hiring, and on that, describe what makes you different and why veterans should come work for you. Because they're going to look for that. It differentiates you from the crowd. You're getting moved to the top of the pile when they start looking around. Operational, what's one level down? Create a veteran recruitment and retention plan that's specific to your company's goals and needs, okay? So there's such a variety out there of the type of veterans you want, the different positions, but make sure you have a clearly defined goal. What type of veterans do you need them to do? Do you need sort of entry-level like laborers? Do you need admin people? Do you need salespeople? Like, who do you need, right? And make sure that you have a specific retention and recruitment plan that is based on your company's mission and the different positions that you want filled. Identify regional sources of qualified veterans. What I mean by that is, right, every base, every port, every airfield that is in your region, you need to be talking with the transition offices. Call them, let them know who you're looking for, and start asking them, how can we work together in a long-term way? A lot of times, they're desperate for people to come in and talk to these transitioning veterans and give them an idea of what's going on. So maybe you can come in and say, well, okay, I'm going to have one of my senior managers come in and talk about the construction industry in general and what the different opportunities are, not just in my company, but in general. What are we looking for? What's the benefits look like? Why they should go there? Answer questions. Education, education, education. So contact those bases, and almost every time, I can guarantee you that if you call them, they'll be like, somebody wants to come in and provide value to these soldiers, you're in. You're going to come in, and then it's going to be like every other month. You're going to have to come in and do an hour talk, and you're going to be the first one that they talk to, and you create expectations. So find where are these veterans coming from. Invest in middle management training. That's going to be the critical step for your veterans, because for the most part, okay, you're not going to be hiring veterans for your very senior leader positions. You might be like senior colonels and generals and stuff, but I'll be honest with you, like they'll be fine, okay? They'll work it out. But majority of what you're going to look for is those veterans come in for entry level and lower level middle management jobs, and the leaders they interact with on a daily basis is your middle management. So if your middle management's crap, your senior executives can be great. But the veterans don't see that. They see their middle managers. So you need to make sure you have strong leadership in the central part of your company. And then any veterans you do have, I would create like a veteran hiring council, veteran experience council, something like that in your company, and get different levels of people involved and create a culture so when this veteran comes in, they're like, hey, all us veterans get together every quarter and we go, whatever, we go have beers, or we go golfing, or we go do whatever, right? We get together and reminisce and say all the words that we're not allowed to say in public anymore, all that stuff, right? And then again, make sure you have a clearly defined and communicate benefits and pay. Veterans are used to looking at a chart, right? Anyone who's worked in the public sector knows this. And they're like, I'm here. In 5 years, I'll get promoted. I will be here. If I want to get paid more, I can do this. And they look at a chart. And that's, if I move here, I get paid this. And if you're like, yeah, changes, I don't know. they're looking for that. They're very used to also having the military benefits, health benefits also. So it's fine if you don't have them, but they need to know what they are. And I'll tell you that you need to educate them, because even as an officer, West Point grad, blah, blah, special operations, I came out and I was like, I still don't understand insurance. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm like, I have to ask my wife to handle it. I'm like, oh, I don't just show up and they don't just treat me? No, they don't do that anymore. Oh, dang it. Okay. So we're so used to just walking in all this stuff that they're not used to that. So even if they've been in, they're in their 30s, they may not understand how benefits and 401ks and health stuff. And you're going to have to explain all of that stuff up front because they don't understand it. And finally, tactical. You educate your HR and hiring managers on military resumes, job titles, jargon. The DD-214, if you don't know, when you get out of the military, they give you a piece of paper. It doesn't matter if you just served 30 years of your life or 2. It's all on one piece of paper. Like, this is who you are now. Okay. Right? And I get questions all the time. You look down and the jargon on there, you don't know if this person was a military analyst dealing with sensitive reports or a machine gunner for 4 years, unless you know what you're looking for. So there's a ton of resources out there, so invest in your HR people actually understanding and be able to translate those things. And those military transition offices at the different bases will absolutely help you with that. That's what they're there for, okay? Visit the regional bases, educate the officer on your needs, and again, at a tactical level, they'll give you contact info. Here's the soldiers we have coming out, and they'll give you the email list to send to them. They want these veterans to get hired. So they'll give you the contact list to go out and see them. They'll tell you, oh, we have a job fair this time. Boom, get there, okay? But don't just show up to a job fair with your lowest level person who doesn't understand your company at all, who's going to stand there and hand out flyers and think you're going to get highly qualified candidates. They can't communicate your mission, values, and purpose and your unique value proposition and why you should work there, and clearly communicate the benefits and pay and how they get promoted. Make sure you have training programs. They have programs now where you can get in 6 months, a year before a soldier's even out, and they can come work for you. They'll give them time off work to come intern for you. And 1, it's free labor. Awesome, right? Quality free labor. 2, that your chances of getting that person, you can give them a job offer before they even get out. So you can set up those training programs at different bases for transition service members. And then again, at a tactical level, make sure that these veterans have a buddy. Have someone that when they show up, they can take them under their wing and show them the ropes so that they're not just lost into the ether. And you just had all this work to hire this great, motivated young person in your company, and because no one's there on a day-to-day basis to check on them, all of a sudden, maybe whether it's just not understanding the system, not feeling the same camaraderie, troubles in transition, not knowing when they need to ask for help, right? They can be hard-headed. So make sure they've got someone who understands them. Here's the thing. If you're not a veteran and you try to talk to a veteran about that experience, you can do your best, but it's not going to be effective. You just don't understand, right? It's like anything major experience. I can talk to someone who went through some trauma and intellectually understand it, but if I didn't experience it, I'm pretty limited in what I can do. So make sure that you empower and enable your veterans to support their veterans coming in to your company. So I'll wrap up here with a few highlights. So first, effective leadership is the greatest competitive advantage in your company and every company out there. Your success or failure is about your people. People above everything else. Your company mission might change. You may be all about a certain type of scaffolding or a certain type of construction, and then the market shifts, and you're like, oh, actually, we're going to do this too, right? That can change, but if you have a good culture, right, and good people, and you take care of them, you'll be successful, right? Amazon used to sell books, right? A great textbook has never made a great student. Only a great teacher can do that. A new stadium doesn't make a championship team. Only a great team can do that. And a great product can never make a good company, or can never make a great company. Only great leadership can do that. And veterans come with a strong work ethic and commitment to mission, but they also come with high expectations for you and the leadership within their company. That's your battle plan to recruit and keep veterans. Thank you.